I can't. Welcome in and a very happy, no idea. But welcome in. We got a lot of college basketball here tonight to go over. Plenty of games. In fact, some interesting ones here tonight. West Coast, a little late basketball for those of us out on the East Coast, which is always fun. But we'll have three big game breakdowns. And of course, we'll have three best bets coming your way here on the College Basketball Tip-Off Show, powered by WagerTalk.com, as we welcome in Mr. Under, Bryan Power. That's right. Another game attended and another under. Bryan, very nice there. 12 in a row, I believe now. 12 in 12 months. Every game Bryan Power attends goes under the total in some capacity, whether it's baseball, whether it's college hoops, NBA. The man is an under machine. There to witness it was Adam Trigger with him, without a doubt. Totally jinxed the entire Pitt Panther team. And we've got R1L. Steve Merrill says, I don't have this problem at William and Mary. So, gentlemen, let us start, if we can, here with what I'm imagining is eventually going to be another under at some point here. But let's talk big game breakdown here, BP, in the Big Ten, if we could, with Michigan taking on Maryland. Oh, talk about two teams that just can't shoot. What are we going to do in this game here? Big Ten, it's conference play. It's, it matters a lot these days. So what are we getting here tonight?
Well, first off, Joe, good thing that Michigan's football team just won the national championship, because his basketball program is circling the drain right now under Juwan Howard. We'll get into that a little bit later on, but let's talk Maryland first, who's at home off back-to-back losses, okay? So they could really use a get-right game. But you look at who those back-to-back losses were to, Joe, and I'm not too worried. One was the top-ranked Purdue, a game that a lot of people thought Maryland was at least going to hang within the number. That was here in College Park. The other game that Maryland has lost, and the last game was to Minnesota on the road. As you know, Joe, a lot of people listening know, Minnesota has the number one ATS record in the country this year. So I'm not bothered by those two losses, and especially because tonight Maryland gets to face a Michigan team that, as I alluded to just a moment ago, is in complete shambles. You have Juwan Howard reportedly choking people in practice, a strength and conditioning coach. How about those strength and conditioning coaches in Ann Arbor? My goodness. And then you have point guard Doug McDaniel, who is curiously suspended, Joe, for the next 6 road games. Have you ever seen a suspension where someone was only suspended for the road games? I would love to hear a story about what happened there, but the bottom line is this. McDaniel, he's been Michigan's best player this season. 17.8 points per game, 4.1 rebounds, 5.1 assists. And you look at how Michigan's performed with McDaniel in the lineup. Well, it hasn't been very good to begin with. Last 4 games, they're 0-4 straight up in ATS. Last 8 games, 1-7 straight up in ATS. Maryland, like I said, I'll say it again before, I'll say it again. This is a get-right game. I did not like them against Purdue over a week ago because I was worried about the 3-point shooting. You alluded to that Maryland's not a great shooting team, but at home, they have found a way to average 79.8 points per game, and that would be, I think, more than enough to cover the number against Michigan. Big edge defensively towards the Terps, Joe. They are top 30 in adjusted defensive efficiency per KenPom. Michigan, 156. This didn't make my card because I'm a little scared of Maryland's 3-point shooting, but it's favorite or pass for me. Today's big game breakdown.
All right, there you go. A little Big Ten action here. We'll switch it over as Trig has got himself an eye on a home dog here with Tulane welcoming in the Owls of Florida Atlantic, who just can't seem to, well, they do a great job of playing down to the competition, Trig, this year. But that's a pretty big number here, over a touchdown for FAU. What do you think we're looking at here in this one tonight?
Yeah, so I'll start with that, Joe. I'll comment on that. We have seen them play down to the competition a couple of times. Bryant earlier this year was a big underdog that beat them, and then of course last time out against Charlotte to lose that game as an underdog. They've played up to teams like Arizona, played down to some other teams. So I guess like it's concerning in the respect that, okay, well, they're roughly they're an 8. I think as high as 8.5 some places, 8 point favorite here. but they just had their loss. So, do you find them in the bounce back spot here? And I think that's one of the reasons that I ultimately didn't have this on my client card, what was for that reason. Um, as far as the matchup is concerned, though, Joe, I think this is a pretty good matchup for Tulane. Um, so first, I'll start with FAU. What Tulane's going to do is come out and play a matchup zone. That's what Ron Hunter does. And I guess my only concern there would be FAU kind of handling the zone and getting open threes. Because they are very capable of hitting 3-point shots. We saw it all year last year in the NCAA tournament, and they're a top 50 3-point shooting team this season so far. And they're usually solid against the zone. And they don't turn the ball over a ton, which is another thing that really helps against the matchup zone, because that's essentially how Tulane plays defense. They want to force the turnover and then go down the other end of the floor right away, very fast. They play that type of pace, and typically it's try to force the turnover, get out and run and get down the floor as quickly as possible. And they might, FAU might have some plus shooting regression because they shot it horribly against Charlotte. And how often does FAU have bad shooting performances back to back? But where I think Tulane has the matchup advantage is on the offensive end. And when you start to, get into the fact like, okay, this is a game where you're catching 8.5 at some places now, that many points, it might be good enough if Tulane can score enough to stay around in this game. So Tulane's entire roster, essentially, it's almost all the same guy. 5'5", 6'5", 6'6", super athletes, get out and run the floor. And that could be tough for FAU because FAU plays, one big, it's Golden, and then they surround him with 4 guards who are a little undersized in comparison to what they're going to have to guard on Tulane. On the flip side, Golden's got a size advantage, but Tulane plays essentially like their big man is Kevin Cross, who plays like a guard at times. He brings the ball up the court as much as any big man in the country, and he's a little bit more versatile. So I could actually see him kind of giving Golden a hard time here. So those matchup sort of advantages, in my opinion, I look at them as advantages to Tulane, and I think that could create some easy buckets here for Tulane that keep them in this game. So I ultimately talked myself off of this one, Joe. I decided that I didn't want to go against FAU coming off of the loss. But if everything else was equal, I think this is probably too many points. And the other thing I would look into here before I actually bet Tulane is that line move. I feel like is a little bit more than just some standard like steam on a side like FAU. I'd want to make sure no one was out for Tulane because like I said, this was 6.5, 7 when we started putting this show together. I saw as high as like 8.5. So I would definitely want to make sure Tulane isn't missing anyone. But again, a lot of those guys, as long as it's not Cross, a lot of the guys on that Tulane side are roughly interchangeable. I think this is starting to creep into value territory for the Green Wave. So I don't hate that. As long as they have their full complement of players, I think they can hang with FAU tonight.
All right, there you go. Keep an eye on that line there with the Owls tonight taking on Tulane. We do have a big game out west, Steve Merrill, that you're going to talk about. And the Zags feels like they are almost forgotten about these days here, but they are taking on Santa Clara. They are laying a lot of points here, though, against Santa Clara. So what gives here? How are you leaning in this one?
Yeah, it does look like Gonzaga's come back down to earth a bit. I mean, if you look at the KenPom rankings right now, they're just the 23rd overall ranked team, 20th offense, 40th defense. And, those are nice metrics. A lot of teams, including my William & Mary Tribe, would gladly take those type of rankings. But for Gonzaga, that's way below average. It's a team that's normally top 10 this time of year in both offense and defensive efficiency, usually number 1 or 2 in offense. They always play fast, and that is the case. 66 fastest tempo, but that's a little bit slower than they normally play. But I think this game will have a quick tempo because Santa Clara, their opponent tonight, also likes to get up and down the court. So I think the over makes some sense here. I would also lean towards Santa Clara. Never in a hurry to fade Gonzaga in a single-digit price in conference play because they've owned the West Coast for years. They've won 10-plus straight games in this series. Santa Clara hasn't won since at least 5 or 6 years ago. But Santa Clara has covered 2 of the last 3, and they also covered the home meeting last season. And another reason I would lean towards Santa Clara on the side here is that it's the second true road game of the season for Gonzaga. They've only played 1 true road game all season. They've had some neutral court games, big neutral court games against Connecticut, UCLA, some other top-notch blue blood programs, but they have not played a true road game except when they were at Washington back on December 9th. And keep in mind, that was an in-state game, so they haven't played a road game outside of the state all season. So I think this is a big home game for Santa Clara. I think they qualify as a live dog here against a Gonzaga team that's a little bit down this season. So I'd lean towards Santa Clara +8, but I like the over the best here. I think both teams will get up and down the court. So take a look at over 158 as well when this game tips off at 9:30 Eastern tonight on Thursday.
There was a time once when Gonzaga was just strictly over. Just bet it and forget about it. Taking on Santa Clara here tonight. 158 is the total. They're up to 8 for the Zags. So now we've got ourselves 3 best bets we are ready to dive into. Before we do that, just a quick reminder, if you're joining us here for the first time, plenty of great college hoops content, NBA, NHL, of course. Wildcard weekend is almost upon us. We got a little something for everyone here at WagerTalk TV. So hit the subscribe button if you haven't done so already, and go ahead, hit that thumbs up. Hit the like button. We certainly appreciate it here at WagerTalk as we send it back to Mr. Under. Bryan Power in the house. 12 straight attendance unders now at games. Let me ask this, Bryan. Are you going to a game tonight here that we need to know about so we can hurry up and play the under, or do you just have an under for us?
I am not going to this game, but I do like the under. But before we get to that game and break down the matchup, Joe, let's just wanted to mention one thing. You talked about subscribing to the WagerTalk YouTube channel, all the great content we have. I just did this morning a preview on Lions Rams. People could check that. I also previewed over in the NBA the Knicks Mavs. I have a 4-pack of hoops tonight, 2 college, 2 NBA, and this play is one of those 2 college plays. So I'm going to give it to you for free. Joe, you never know what I'm going to say on the program. I think you know that better than anybody. And today I'm going to tell you a team that was just involved in a game that had 190 total points scored will go under 129. Let's talk Stony Brook and Towson here. Stony Brook off a wild 93-87 home loss to Charleston. They blew a 15-point lead in that one. They're up 7 at the half. So really tough result for the Seawolves. They gave up 55 in the second half. Still covered a 6.5-point underdog. So you were happy if you bet them, but they obviously were quite upset with that result. And now you look at that game against Charleston and this game against Towson, Joe. There is going to be a major, major difference when it comes to the pace of play. Charleston plays at a top 50 adjusted tempo. Towson plays second slowest adjusted tempo in the entire country, ahead of only Virginia. So right off the bat, it's going to be a lower scoring affair. We need it to be much lower scoring, obviously, with the total that you see on the screen. But what I see when I look at that Charleston Stony Brook box score is 2 teams that shot 55% from the floor. Charleston had 13 made threes. None of that's going to happen again here. Stony Brook only shoots 42% overall for the season. They're a very poor 2-point percentage team, ironically enough, and they shoot 38.6% when away from home. So you put them on the road, and the shooting numbers get real ugly. Matter of fact, last road game for the Seawolves was a 62-53 final. That would have easily gone out under this number. And in 6 of 15 games this season, Stony Brook has scored 63 points or fewer. I'm shocked that they're 6-1 to the over on the road. I think it's going to be a reversal of fortune here because in addition to playing ultra slow, Towson allows just 59.3 points per game at home this season. That's the good news for them. The bad news is their offensive numbers also stink. Last Thursday on the road, they just scored 43 at Monmouth. There were only 94 combined points in that game, if you can believe it. And even last weekend, a 67-64 win over UNC Wilmington. Towson, they're still for the year shooting 41% overall, 31% from 3, 63% from the line. Those are terrible numbers. It's been a struggle to score. This game is going to be played at a crawl. They shot 50% from 3 against NC Wilmington, did Towson, and still only scored 67. These are 2 offensively challenged teams. Slow pace. Under, Joe. I won't be there, but I would definitely bet the under. We've seen some movement on this already this morning. Stony Brook Towson, under 129. Your best bet for the show today.
That's going to be an epic game. All right, good stuff there, Trig. I get first one to 40 wins. Yay. All right, Treg. I would trust you are going to stay in the Western New York area vicinity, somewhere in there, or do you have another location that you might spend some time breaking a game down? And tell us what you got locked, loaded, ready to roll at WagerTalk.
So it's not quite Western New York. This is more considered Central New York that we'll be hanging out in for the best bet, which might end up being a client play. Right now, I've got one play up for college basketball tonight. I have a 5% NFL play for the weekend. I like both of them quite a bit, and I expect to start cashing tickets soon because it's just I hope that I've gotten all the bad luck out. Last night I lost by a point with Fairleigh Dickinson in a game that I had the injury news for Chicago State, beat the move by like 3 points, and they lost by one on a late foul. So hopefully the negative variance is starting to go on its way out. But again, I love playing college hoop tonight. That's a 4% play up on my page, and I love one of the NFL playoff games. It's a 5% play. This one's close, and you know what? Like as we start to like that number is actually probably incorrect at this point. I mean, it's still 6.5 some places, but we're seeing 7 and 7.5s come back around, which makes it more and more tempting for me to add this to my client card. But I will talk about why right now Binghamton is very close for me to being a play. So first of all, the interesting thing about these two teams is the fact that you have two America East teams here that are almost the same, like when it comes to like the makeup of the team and how they like to play um games. They're very, very similar teams. They both basically play four guards, and they put a forward in that kind of acts as a big, and they really just play like guard oriented, um you know drive to the hoop type basketball, which I think makes them a nice sort of matchup for each other, and makes me kind of think that Bryant will have a hard time pulling away here, because when I've watched Bryant this year, it feels like they play better when they have a little bit of a contrast in style. The Towson game comes to example, a team that Brian Power just talked about, where they really gave Towson's bigs trouble because they had a bunch of fast, quick guards out there, and Towson's sort of like front court and their ability to rebound was like less prominent than it would be because of how Bryant plays. And that's base. I mean, that's exactly what Bryant is going to do. They're going to put four guards out there, and they're going to play someone like Connor Withers, who came over from UMass Lowell. Daniel Rivera was the St. Louis transfer. Earl Timberlake, who's been there for a while, kind of like, they kind of play that guy as like a big, and then just go all guards, cut to the hoop, see if they can kick it out for an open three, which tends to work. They're 61st nationally in 3-point shooting. That it's become like an interesting sort of stylistic advantage for them in a lot of cases. They're scrappy, they play hard, they rebound well for guards, and they contest shots pretty good for being undersized. But I've noticed that Binghamton does almost all of those same things. Binghamton had two transfers this year. Timu Shinnery from Quinnipiac, who's become their best player. A guy I really liked when he was in the MAC, and he's really emerged as like the go-to guy on this team. And he's been great. I think I always thought he would be that for Quinnipiac, and now he is that for Binghamton. And then Samir Torrance, who if you follow ACC, follow Syracuse, he's a guy that never really caught on for the Cuse, but has sort of stepped down to play in the America East, and he's averaging double figures, and he's a really strong player in that conference. I like the fact that Binghamton's not going to shoot a bunch of threes. They're going to try to drive to the basket. They're going to make Bryant really work on defense, which has been a way that you can hang around with this Bryant team. Just to go to back to the other game we talked about, the way Bryant sort of beat Florida Atlantic was because Florida Atlantic sort of just like took a bunch of threes and couldn't buy a shot in that game. And I think Binghamton's going to be a little bit more, get to the hoop and do a lot of the things that Bryant does well. Now, the interesting thing with Binghamton here, they have not played a Division I opponent since December 22nd. They have not played a game since December 30th. So the long layoff, I suppose, would be a concern. But also, it could be a nice time for them to recharge, because they did look like they were getting a little bit tired. toward the end of that run. And if you go back to the beginning of the season, I felt like Binghamton played their best ball early when they got a nice win over Marist. They beat Loyola, Army, like strung a bunch of wins together early. They hung around with Northwestern, as a double digit dog and covered that game. I think they ended up losing by 10. So maybe the layoff actually does help Binghamton here. At any rate, I think 7 or 7.5 is probably too many. So I like the Bearcats in this America East matchup. I think Binghamton hangs around and covers the number.
Ooh, getting it done. Take them points with the dog here tonight. So a nice card across the board here. A lot of very intriguing games coming up, including another one out west for Steve Merrill. I could have sworn there would have been a William and Mary play somewhere in here, but no William and Mary player, though they are on the road today, I believe. So you won't be at the game, Merrill. So tell us what you're going to do with Washington and Arizona State, and tell us what you got available over at WagerTalk.
Yeah, they're actually at Hampton, only 30 minutes from
Yes.
Williamsburg, but I will not be going to that game. I see enough William and Mary basketball when they're at home. Be damned if I'm going to go travel 30 minutes to watch them play. But anyway, big CAA game. You let me know what side you're on, Joe, because you're the CAA expert. Nailed them last week. Yeah, actually, I'm going to talk about a game which I was on last week, Washington, Arizona State. Washington was a team I used last week. They came up short against Oregon last Thursday by a basket. But keep in mind, in that game, they missed 10 free throws. They were just 12 for 22. They missed as many free throws as Oregon hit in the entire game and lost by 2. So I do think there's some value with the Huskies. I'm going to give you the reasons why and also a reason to fade Arizona State here in just a moment. Quick reminder, though, I do have a strong lineup for Thursday and this weekend on my page at wagertalk.com. I've got a Thursday night NBA best bet, Bucks Celtics, one of the biggest games this month in the NBA, possible Eastern Conference Finals preview tonight, Bucks Celtics. I'll let you know who's going to win that game, how to make some money when you play it. Don't forget, last year, 103 and 63 in the NBA, 40 games above 500 in 2023. We're going to have a huge 2024. Also, 4 NFL best bets for the wildcard games are loaded right now. There are 5 NFL wildcard games on Saturday and Sunday, and I've got best bets in 4 of the 5 loaded already. I love this weekend's NFL card. Check that out as well. And don't forget my NFL Fade the Public Wildcard Edition video will be up soon. So hit like and hit subscribe here on Wager Talk TV. And on my page, daily free plays, also a 3-day and a 1-year promo codes for both 3-day and 1 year. If you want to try it out for 3 days, or if you're ready to take that serious investment approach, instant discounts and savings with all access promo codes, Steve Merrill, wagertalk.com. Right, I like Washington minus the 7 tonight. It's a late game at 11 o'clock Eastern. And as I mentioned, I think they're a little bit of an underrated team after losing 3 of their last 4. They got back on track, though, against Oregon State last Saturday at home. They've been off now for 4 days, remained at home. But it's a bigger reason to fade Arizona State, a team that's coming off 4 straight wins as an underdog. That's right. They've been an underdog of 3 points or more in 4 straight games. They've won all 4 straight up, including back-to-back home win upsets over Utah and Colorado. Now they're traveling. This is a terrible spot for the Sun Devils. And I think we get a little bit of an undervalued team on Washington on top of it. It all adds up to a solid situational play on the Washington Huskies minus 7, your late night game at 11 Eastern tonight on Thursday. Don't forget, comment in the video below. We read the comments, we reply back. Thumbs up, like, subscribe, and hit that bell for instant alerts when my NFL Fade the Public videos are ready right here on Wager Talk TV. Have a great weekend, everybody. Enjoy the games, and be sure to check out the NFL and daily college and pro football and basketball videos on the channel as well.
We also have I believe, a bet from our friends over at the Gold Sheet, too, as well. And wouldn't you know it, they, too, looking at that Arizona-Washington game here tonight. Only they're liking the under at 152.5, simply because, well, this is the highest total that Arizona State has been involved with all season. And in road and I believe neutral site games, Arizona State, well, they're just averaging 65.5 points per game. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. And last year we saw this twice. 138 and 135 was the total of points. And one of those games, I think, even went into overtime. So not anticipating a whole lot of points, certainly not 152.5. That courtesy of our friends at the Gold Sheet, which we'd encourage you guys to go check out if you haven't done so already, is great write-ups on all the games here, plus great information on all the trends and stats you need to know in order to make smart sports investing decisions. Once again, here's the recap as Steve Merrill going out west for Washington in that game is his best bet. Bryan Powers never met an under he hasn't liked here. Stony Brook taking on Towson. Guess what? Under in that one, while Trig going to Central New York and Binghamton. They're taking 6.5. He's got no problem backing them tonight. And of course, Gold Sheet, they're going to like that under 152.5 with Arizona State and Washington. And you heard Steve talk about it. Plenty of great content here at WagerTalk TV for you. Hit the subscribe button. Hit that like button. Make plans to come back and join us again tomorrow as we get ready for a huge weekend in college basketball, NFL, NHL, NBA, you name it. We have got you covered. In fact, get a head start. Click on that video on your screen right now. Check out all the big videos, all the matchup previews and best bets we've got already over at WagerTalk TV. Best of luck with your plays. We'll see you again soon.